Welcome back to the iFish News Fishing Podcast. Your host, Glenn, with the City Island Fishing Field Team, COAF Field Team on YouTube. In this round, Fishing Podcast 42, Episode 23, we're talking the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing podcast series, specifically looking at a new section. This is going to be part 3 of the book. We're talking reading water, 37 tips to help you find trout in a river and effectively cast to them. Just want to do a real quick update on some things that we posted recently. One is fishing updates. What's next? This is where yours truly is in the upper left of the screen here. Some updates on fly fishing, some bait finesse fishing, as well as, well, iFish News Fishing Podcast, and then our trip to Galveston, which we'll be heading there here shortly. So good stuff there. Talked about some ultralight bait casting. In the lower left, you'll see bass fishing, the local pond, where I was able to take out the Shimano Scorpion BFS XG reel and had some great fun over there right before it started raining. Actually, it started raining, and I was still able to catch a few bass on the, what was it, a rooster tail. All right, and then just going back to iFish News Fishing Podcast, in the upper right, you'll see this was, let's see, I think it was podcast 40, the one that was before this one, 41, and episode 22. Do check that one out. There was some good things there. Okay, and then the lower right, one-handed spey fly fishing. Do give it a try. That's where yours truly takes out the OPC Commando head, which is a shooting head, and I try it on a 4-weight 175 grain shooting head, and I try it on a 4-weight Reddington Flyrod, and had some really good results there. All right, let's go jump right into the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Part 3, Reading Water, 37 tips to help you find trout in a river and effectively cast to them. We'll specifically be talking about 106, tips 106 to 109. It kind of rolls over from the other chapters, and so it's 37 tips, but it starts out at 106 in part 3. And over here, just briefly recap what they're talking about. There are many reasons people gravitate to fly fishing. Some pick it up from a parent or relative. Others might try it by chance and find themselves hooked. Perhaps a friend talked you into spending a day on the river, and maybe you read the book A River Runs Through It, or saw the movie. Possibly you need a relaxing hobby and simply decide to give fly fishing a try. We all get here from various starting points. So, hey, yeah, I'm hooked. I was actually hooked back in the early 80s, before the movie came out. All right, let's go into the first one, 106. Okay, start off with tip 106, fish like changes. The best lesson I ever learned about locating trout in a river came from a tuna captain. Fishing with Steve Creature Coulter, 40 miles off Hatteras, North Carolina. I stared out at the horizon and asked him how in the world he went about finding fish in the open ocean. "It isn't so hard," he said, smiling. "It's just like trout fishing. For the record, Creature might be one of the most decorated game fishermen on the Atlantic seaboard, but his closest fishing passion is chasing trout with flies. How do you figure that?" I asked, perplexed by the comparison. "Fish like changes," he said. "Changes in currents, changes in depth, changes in water color, changes in structure. If you find a patch of seagrass floating in the open ocean, that's a structure change, and you'll find fish under it. If you find a place where currents converge, bait fish will school there, and bigger fish will follow them. Reefs, wrecks, and rock formations attract fish too, as do underwater ridges and canyons. Apply that thinking when you go to the trout river. Look for changes in currents, where swift water meets slow water, changes in structure, where rocks and trees create holding water, changes in depth, like shells and pools, or changes in color, which usually signals a depth or structural transition. It's all pretty much the same," Creature told me. "You trout guys can walk or row a boat to find those changes, but you're essentially doing the same thing a tuna boat captain does in the ocean. Find the changes, find the fish." Hey, so that kind of reminds me of some bass fishing and finding structure, as well as, well, those different changes. So think about it from a trout standpoint: fishing a river, fishing structure, fishing those current changes, fixing those seams. Okay, I'm with that. All right, cool stuff. Fish like changes. Okay, next up, 107, Depressing Advice. The subject wasn't really personal hygiene, although it might have been for a wet behind-the-gills angler grubbing his way along a series of Montana rivers in the early 1970s. Faced with the dual challenge of my first float trip and the mystery of the Lower Madison River, notorious as the world's longest ripple for its lack of distinguishing characteristics, I presented my dilemma to Lee Wolf. Noted for his economy of speech, the legendary angler answered me with a single word: bathtubs. The wisdom of this odd advice soon became clear, however. In what appears to be an even-flowing river, look for holes in the surface. Cavities in the riverbed that form a resting place out of the main flow are echoed on the surface as slight depressions. For an angler zipping along in a drift boat, that task lies in spotting those depressions well ahead in time to prepare a suitable cast. You'll recognize them as low spots on the surface, a direct reflection of the bathtub effect immediately below. Okay, so a good one to keep in mind: bathtubs, a little depression from the bottom, also translating to the surface. So we'll keep that in mind. Tip 107, depressing advice. Okay, 108, the shadow nose. Most trout are endowed with a natural camouflage, loving variations of color, tones, and spots that make them difficult to see, but no fish can hide its shadow. Veteran observers often look specifically for this giveaway rather than the actual fish, particularly against the contrasting background of a pale river bottom. Okay, that's a good one to know. The shadow nose. Look for those shadows, pale river bottom, and you see the shadow before you actually see the trout itself. I've seen that. Blue River, Lower Illinois, the Guadalupe. Yes, I'm with that. The shadow nose. Look for that. Well, that natural camouflage is going to throw you, but look for the shadow. All right, I like that one. Okay, quick recap. We went through 106, fish like changes. 107, depressing advice, the shadow nose. And now we're going through the last one, 109, watch for the flash. Let's check it out. Despite their ability to hide effectively, there are times when trout completely betray their whereabouts. In particular, I'm talking about those times when they turn aggressively to intercept an emerging insect, particularly a fast-moving species such as a caddis. Watch the water closely, and you'll eventually see what appears to be a flash bulb explosion, a sure sign that an aggressive trout has just turned its right flank to take an insect. When the flight goes on, this reveals not only the location of fish, but a clue to what it may be eating. When you see this in the vicinity of your drift, set the hook. The flash lightly indicates a fish is taking your fly. Okay, watch for the flash. I'm a believer in that one. In fact, I remember a trip down or up to Turner Falls over there in Oklahoma, and I remember casting. It was clear water, but you could definitely see some shadows moving around, but not the trout itself. And then I would see something come up and kind of be a real quick flash, and boom, I would just go ahead and set the hook. And sure enough, I was able to catch a unlimited trout that trip. So, hey, tip 109, watch for the flash. I like it. Okay, all for now. This round it was tips 106 through 109. Fish like changes, tip 106. Depressing advice, tip 107. The shadow nose, tip 108. And then watch for the flash, 109. All of them some good advice. And that said, hey, do check back. We'll be going through another in the series. It's going to be tips 110 through 113. And they're specifically going to be talking of, let's see, tip 110, you got to pick a pocket or two. 111, rock on. 112, pillow talk. 113, rob the banks. All righty. Till next time, we'll catch you later. Good luck and good fishing.